Hi, welcome to Elephants in the Room, where we tackle the topics that persons usually shy away from. Join us as we dig deep into the issues and opinions that really deserve attention, the conversations that matter most. Let's unearth the unspoken and confront those elephants together in 3, 2, 1. Good evening, and welcome to this episode of Elephants in the Room. This evening, we are going to be talking about something that is really close to my heart because I would have gone through it myself. We are talking about divorce. And you may ask, why divorce? Divorce seems to be, everyone knows about it. Is this really a conversation that persons shy away from? Yes, it is. And as we discuss this topic this evening, you're going to hear of different things that persons, when they go through the whole process of divorce, they don't want to talk about it. They feel alone and by themselves, but we want to encourage some person out there that they're not alone. Persons have gone through it before and are willing to share their experience so that you can have a better process in the end. But before we get into today's segment, I would like to share a disclaimer. The content of this evening's program is not to judge or criticize anyone's opinion on divorce, nor is it to give our conclusion on whether divorce is right or wrong. Rather, we are here to stand in solidarity with those who are going through similar process, and we're also here to encourage and help persons understand what this process is like, recognizing that each person's situation is unique. So, without further ado, joining me this evening is two lovely ladies. I would like to welcome Jeanette and Tamara to our show. So Jeanette, she is a certified graphic artist. She resides in the United States of America. Both of them actually reside right now in the United States of America. Jeanette also loves music, and obviously she loves art as well. And she has been divorced for the past 15 to 17 years. 15 years, right? I think you told me? Yes. And also with her this morning is Tamara. Tamara is a certified therapist in the United States of America, and she loves going to the gym. So these ladies, they are going to give different perspectives on divorce, coming from a personal perspective and then from a psychological perspective in the case of Tamara. So ladies, welcome.
Thank you.
Good, wonderful. All right, so we know the stats about divorce. They say that divorce has been escalating over the last couple of years. When I did my research on this particular topic, it actually said that the divorce stats globally, and this is obviously not including every single country, but the stats are alarming. 40% to 50% of marriages end up in divorce. Well, that's sad. However, that is the reality. It also further went on to state that countries like the US and Japan have a higher divorce rate than countries like India and Chile. They have very low divorce rates. So depending on the country or where we are around the world, we can see that it's either very high or extremely low. All right. Today, though, you're going to be sharing your perspectives on personal opinions, personal feelings, what you would have gone through, and then from a psychological perspective to help those out there cope with the challenges that they are facing. So Jeanette, first question is for you. Now, I said before, divorce is like a process, right? Actually, let's go to Tamara first. Tamara, from a psychological perspective, what are some of the steps or the process that persons go through from beginning to end when it comes to divorce?
Okay, so I could answer that several ways, but I think I'm going to go with the grieving process, and that's the 5 stages of grief. Because you're losing something. You're losing a part of your life. You're losing something that's familiar, and in many cases, something that was dear to you. So you have in no particular order, because I think when we look at the grieving process, we think it's linear, but it's not. It could occur in any sequence. So you have bargaining, you have denial, you have anger, you have acceptance, and you have depression. And so if you just hear those words, you kind of look. So you're faced with this reality that, I'm going to have a divorce. It could be the denial. It could be, no, this is not happening to me. The acceptance part, and I'm just going all over, could look like, okay, this is happening. And this is my new norm. This is my new normal. This is my reality. The anger stage could be anger towards your partner, whether it be for infidelity or whether it be for just giving up on the relationship. The bargaining could be, you know what? If my marriage could be saved, I'm gonna do this. Like you can bargain with God, you can bargain with the person, like I'm gonna be better, I'm gonna do this. So there are those different stages, and people can go through them at any point, or they may not even go through all the stages. Some people may go from denial straight to acceptance, or from anger to acceptance. So it just looks different from person to person.
Yeah, thank you. And Jeanette, so hearing those 5 steps of the grieving process, which is also associated with divorce, which of those steps did you go through in your divorce process?
Well, honestly, I'm not sure if I even had time to grieve, because it just felt like so much was happening one after the other, and I basically had to go into survival mode. I had 2 younger kids, 2 younger daughters at the time as well. So it was that type of situation where you had to be strong for them most of all. At the time I was a stay-at-home mom, and I was also someone who was in the church. So then you're dealing with facing the outside world, dealing with what's happening in the home. I didn't have a job at the time. And when he made the decision to leave, and then when it got to the point of me saying, okay, I've tried, I want a divorce, for me it was more the reality of, I didn't get married to get a divorce. Yeah. And there was a lot of shame that I carried, that I do believe a lot of people carry, because especially when you're in the church community, there's this stigma of stay in it. It is the God thing to do. So for me, I did feel that type of responsibility of trying to be that good wife, that godly wife. And I do believe sometimes we marry wrong. And, for me, it was a hard decision trying to make, do I want to stay and deal with whatever comes with it? Or do I just want to just say I'm out? So I believe a lot of my grieving probably came after the fact. And that grieving process for me more entailed, why did I stay so long? I could have gotten out longer, could have moved on with my life, but so that was how it went for me.
Interesting. You mentioned a number of things there, which really leads into my next question regarding emotions. So some persons are really happy, they're happy to get out of the divorce. Some persons, you mentioned some of the emotions in the whole grieving process. They're happy, they're elated. Some persons are sad, some persons are disappointed with their life, whether it is that they wasted time in the marriage, they should have gotten out earlier. So there are different emotions that come out in divorce. So Jeanette, can you recall any of those emotions specifically? Like, were you at times happy, at times sad, at times angry, at times shocked?
I think I was more angry because of the things that occurred, because this was also someone that I was married to, that we were friends before getting married. Friendship is also something that's very important to me in relationship. So there's that unspoken expectation that when you have that type of dynamic, it's not supposed to end in divorce. So when, several things occurred and we got to that point, I was mad, and I was mad as people would say, what comes after that? And I was disappointed. And then, I was also mad with myself again, because I just felt like, I started asking myself, did you see red flags along the way?
And ignore them.
And you ignored them. Even if you and that person did have a friendship before the fact, you start to replay the process and the years and the different occurrences in your mind to see, were you naive, or kind of like, were you being played? So I think it was a lot more anger for me. And then after the fact, which was several years after, then I was like, yeah, I'm happy. I did the right thing.
Yes, okay. Wonderful. All right, so And this question, we're going to start with Tamara with this one. This is all about support. So you mentioned, we talked about the grieving process, the different emotions that you go through. So one can imagine how it's like a roller coaster of emotions and then a roller coaster of feelings. 1 minute you're happy, you're sad. So when you're going through those on a regular day, you need support. If you don't have that support there for you, you can imagine what possible outcomes they could be. So Tamara, what type of support can a woman, because we're looking at it from a female perspective this week, but what type of support can someone have when they're going through divorce? First off, knowing that they're not in it alone, because I think that's the major thing right now. The person's think that I'm doing this on my own, there's no one there to help me. So what kind of support is there out there for some person going through divorce?
Okay, so that's a really good question. I would describe divorce as a crisis crisis of sorts. And so what crises do, they have the ability to isolate you. And you feel like, I'm alone in this. Even though you can go on the internet, you can read all these statistics and you can see like several people go through divorce. For whatever reason, a crisis will isolate. So we as human beings are wired for connection. We need connection from infancy. Infants need that connection. So we need that connection. That is what actually helps to buffer the crises we go through, the impact of trauma, like all throughout the lifespan. So you said something that's really important, to know you're not alone. So I'll lead with that. One of the things that you can do, there are support groups for individuals going through divorce, and that helps to normalize the experience. And it also provides that supportive, non-judgmental environment. You have to know who to trust. You have to find at least 1 or 2 individuals that you can really trust as you go through this process, because while sharing your story is so important, you got to be careful where and with who you share your story with. There's a famous quote that I love, which says, shame dies where stories are shared in safe spaces. Mm-hmm. So you got to find a safe space, because divorce brings a lot of shame, whether it be from, the impact of the religious community, society, it brings a lot of shame. So you want to find a safe space where you can share your story. And I'm going to bring a Christian perspective too, because for me, God is the biggest support. And so if you are of any religious persuasion, you believe in a higher power, that is another form of support that gets you through. And I would recommend therapy as well. And we may talk about that a little later, get more in depth. But you find a therapist that fits you, a therapist that meets your needs, a therapist that you align with, and those are the ones that I would recommend.
Yeah, sounds wonderful. So Jeanette, during your divorce process, did you seek professional help? Was there, using the examples that Tamara would have mentioned, it might not have been therapy specifically, but was there support for you? What type of support was there for you during that process?
So no, I didn't seek any type of professional therapy or counseling, because I believe most of us know that in years past, therapy or counseling was deemed like you're crazy and something is wrong with you. And then it was also more directed to a certain color of people. Right. It was counseling and therapy was not something that was big in the Black community. However, I also want to highlight that there's a difference between being surrounded by a lot of people and being supported by a lot of people. I had like my mom there. I did have friends that I can talk to and that I can share with, but also I was surrounded by people who I saw stayed in marriages, even in the church, that were very abusive. I mean, there was lots of infidelity because, again, of the stigma of staying and doing the right thing, covering your husband, the godly man and everything. So as it pertained to me, I feel like even though that I did share or kind of, talk it out with a lot of people, that type of support, now that I know better, the type of support that I probably or someone like myself would have needed, I wouldn't say that I had gotten that, because there were so many other people as well that were very, either secretive or closed on what they were going through. So to come out even in public, to even have that discussion in the church, where it's supposed to be like a hospital, as so many say, or a safe space, it's kind of like you're embarrassing your husband. So for me, I think a lot of my personality got me through it, but as she stated, my faith in God is what really brought me through it, because as strong as my personality is, I don't think that that could ever prepare you for when life decides to start life in.
Yeah.
So God just really helped me get through a lot of it.
Nice.
Yeah.
I myself, as I mentioned before, would have gone through a divorce. And when someone in the church recommended that I do therapy, at the point in time, I was like, why do I need therapy? I'm good. Like, I'm not grieving, I'm not angry, I'm not sad. But going to that therapy really helped me to love myself, love on myself more. And one of the things that the therapist told me, was someone from Canada, one of the things that she told me, and I kind of rearranged it in my own little acronym. It spells out BAJAN, Bajan. I don't know how this worked out, but it spells out Bajan as an acronym. So she said, no blaming, no accusations, no judgments, no, can't remember the other A, and no negativity. But those were the things that she told me, and I had to do this for like a month. And when I came back to her, I had to attest that I did not do these 5 things that spelled out Bajan. And that really helped me throughout my divorce process. But whether it's psychology, going to a therapist, or speaking to your mother, or having that best friend that you can share your information with and know that they're going to give you valuable information, you do need support. Support is really, really important. So we're going to talk a little bit now post-divorce. So the divorce has happened. You are finally divorced, How do you go about healing? What steps can one take to heal from that process that you would have gone through, that roller coaster of emotions? So to Jeanette, looking back, what aspects of your life do you think have changed throughout that process?
So again, I would more say that my faith in God and not being religious, because I don't believe in religion. It's more having a personal relationship with God. And for each person that looks different, because we're all at different intervals in our growth process, in our relationships, if you are a faith believer. And I feel like that is the main thing that started me on the healing journey, because again, at that time, going to a counselor or a therapist was not an option at the time. And again, talking to people and really telling people or telling everybody everything that was going on, it was like a shameful thing. So for me, I kind of more dealt with it by myself, and I feel that it has taken me longer than most people that would be going through that process. And sometimes when I look back, I'm like, well, I could have finished this race a much longer time before. Maybe if I had just let go of certain things, maybe if I had stopped being so angry, even though your feelings are legit. Because I don't want people to think that if you are angry, even sometimes bitter, sometimes it's for legit reasons. But I realized that I needed to get past that to allow myself to be free, because then you realize that if you don't allow yourself to go through that healing journey, whatever that means for you, be it the counseling, praying, or, sometimes it may entail even having a conversation with that person. I mean, my ex-husband and I, there were times that we have had several conversations. I don't know how truthful those conversations were, but ultimately I realized for me to get through that healing journey, it was some of those things were things that only God honestly could have helped me with. And then I had to make those decisions to just let it go and just move on in life. Because sometimes you don't get the apology that is needed.
Yes. So Tamara, besides the healing aspects that she would have mentioned, are there other mechanisms of healing that one can pursue after they have completed their divorce?
Yeah, I think I really want to speak on something just because it seems to be a reoccurring theme, and that's the shame that comes along with divorce. That's huge. And so one of the things that we find is that along with the divorce comes other co-occurring or simultaneous crises. And more impactful sometimes than the divorce is the shame that comes along with it, resulting from the religious community you're in. You may be in the business world, and sometimes networking and bringing your partner is huge. So now you don't have a partner to bring, and now you don't have that, and it could bring some shame. How society views that you stay with your husband no matter what, all of that brings shame. And so part of that healing process, processing it with either a professional or a trusted friend, helps you to deal with that shame. Sometimes when individuals come to therapy, we may think the divorce is the presenting problem, and a lot of the times it's not. Sometimes it's the shame that's causing this person this conflict, because I was brought up in the church. I don't get divorced, and here I am getting divorced. How does God see me? How do I see me? How does the church see me? How does my society see me? And I feel like that causes more distress than the actual divorce. So I would say get into the root of that, healing that shame, telling your story in a safe space, and having somebody process it with you and really challenge those negative cognitions that can come out of it. A lot of the times we come out of it like, I'm a horrible person because I got a divorce. How could I be religious? How could I believe in God and get a divorce? How could I give up on my marriage? And so I think addressing that is part of the healing process. Another thing I would suggest is like developing a routine. Routines help you when you're going through a difficult time, because your brain don't want to do certain things. And so developing a routine, whether it be going to the gym, you get up in the morning, you do your devotion, you go to the gym, you go to work, developing a routine, getting some structure in your life, that is something that I would suggest. And I would suggest some self-help books as well. Audibles, like just fortifying your mind with positivity, kind of like what the therapist told you, because you need that going through that. So that's all part of the healing process, because it helps you to see yourself. When you're listening to those books and stuff, you start to see yourself and the things that you may need to work on. Sometimes we think the divorce is the end all be all. Sometimes it's some deep childhood trauma that led to that marriage, that led to that divorce, that we gotta address. So get into the root of it, whether it by therapy, self-healing books, I would suggest.
Yeah, thank you. So besides the healing, divorce can also bring about self-discovery. And I think the two are linked together. Yeah. You heal, and then you discover your new self. And you mentioned some activities, reading, talking to a therapist, but there are many other activities that persons can engage in that would help with their self-discovery, going to the gym, changing their lifestyle, their diet, So Jeanette, after your divorce, did you see any major changes with yourself in terms of how you carried yourself, the things that you would have done differently, your characteristics, your attributes?
Well, I believe when I assessed myself, whether I felt that I was to be blamed, partly blamed, or not blamed at all for whatever occurred, I was still able to see there was a need for change in me so that I can become my best self. So a lot of that, again, now due to social media, you get more of the self-help books, and back then information was there, but it was not as accessible. Yes, accessible as it is to us now. So again, I do believe I would spend time just more assessing myself, assessing maybe some of the things that I have done wrong, and not necessarily that I did this person wrong, like where did I go wrong in myself?
Self-introspection.
Yes, that maybe I could just be a better person. So a lot of that, yes, I applied for jobs, let's just say, because sometimes you don't focus on the inner, sometimes you get caught up on the external. So you may, as she stated, not that there's anything wrong with going to the gym, but you may say, okay, you know what? Let me go out and shop and buy an entire new wardrobe. And sometimes that's needed. Or you may say, you know what, I'm going to start going out and hanging out a little bit more. Sometimes that may mean going back on the dating scene or different things like that. Or sometimes it could be traveling, doing different things. So I think my journey entailed things more like that, because I had already started the process of the trajectory between me and God. So, I didn't necessarily have that down pat, but at least that was present. And then I just added other things.
I remember for me, my divorce happened during COVID, and I guess the two kind of merged together for me. So I remember during COVID in Barbados, we had a certain time frame that you could go to the beach on mornings, early on mornings, or late on evenings. You couldn't go to the beach during the regular daytime. And I live close to a beach. So early on mornings, I would get up and I would drive to the beach and just spend like an hour. And that's not something that I used to do before. But I found that it helped, release the tension, calm my nerves, and help me to concentrate and to think about who am I as an individual and what do I want for my life and where do I want to go. And just sitting at the beach, even now doing it, sitting at the beach and relaxing, hearing the waves and smelling the sargassum seaweed, because the beach was flooded with sargassum seaweed at that time. But still, it was a refreshing area in my life where I just, sat and relaxed and kind of resolved everything that was going on at that time. So yes, to your point, there are so many things that you can do, whether it be shopping or buying yourself a nice outfit, changing up your hairstyle, buying some makeup, getting your nails done. There's so much things that we as women can do rather than to stay inside and blame ourselves and have that pity party. Why me? Why did I have to go through this, right? I don't know, Tamara, if you want to share anything else.
I think when I'm listening to what you guys are saying, one of the things that comes to my mind is how people learn to swim. So you take them out to, I still can't swim, disclaimer, because nobody did this to me, but like you will hear people go out and they get pushed out and then you gotta either sink or swim. And so one of the things I always tell my clients, like there's hidden gems in everything you go through, but you gotta look for it. And so divorce is something that could be so devastating. However, even in there is a hidden gem, because I feel like it forces you to see you, and it forces you to love yourself. It's like you're gonna either love yourself or you're gonna destroy yourself, and then you have the choice. Exactly. And you will see like there's kind of like this rebirth. You getting to know you. What do I love? What do I want to do? Like simple things, like you said, going out, meeting people, like doing different things. But I think with that, just trying new things, just come in. I would say it forces you to go on a journey of self-love, but you got to choose it, because you don't have no choice. It's either self-love or self-destruction. And a lot of the times people choose self-love. So that's the beauty in it for me. That's the beauty in that trial for me.
So wrapping up, ladies, I just want your final thoughts and what advice you will give to a woman out there who is experiencing this situation. Some person says a challenge, this challenging era in their life. What advice would you give to that woman who is considering divorce, going through divorce, or have been divorced and is like, what next?
Well, I'll say a few things. I do believe that you have to be very careful with who you're sharing your information with, and prayerfully that person would be surrounded by individuals that truly love and care about them, and that they would tell them the truth. I personally, even being a person that is divorced, I do not believe in man or men bashing, because there are great men out there, there are good men out there. Can they be great and good men who have done bad things? Yes, because I do believe good people do bad things as well, or bad things even happen to good people. So sometimes you have to be careful, because you may get that homegirl or that family member that never liked him that's going to say, girl, I knew he was a dog all along, and sometimes life happens, and it is hard when it happens in a way where you least expect it. But you have to, my mom always said, take an inventory of yourself, which is like you said, just doing the self-reflection. I also believe that women also need to understand that you have the right to be a little selfish. That's my belief. And I also realize that sometimes, especially when children are part of the factor of what's going on, a lot of times women tend to feel like, I have to do everything and devote all of myself to this child or the children. And sometimes they end up losing themselves in the process, because now you have gone from devoting yourself to the family dynamic now to the children. And I know people that personally would say things like, I can't wait until my kids get 18. Now I'm free. I never felt like that, because I always felt that I was still an individual person, because I'm a person before I was a mother, before I'm a wife, before I can be a girlfriend. So I just think that people or women need to just be mindful to not lose themselves in different dynamics that can happen in the divorce process. It could be money. For me, again, when he left, I had no job or anything. I literally had to build my life up from scratch. So one of the things that I discovered is that yes, it is possible. You can build your life back from scratch. So right, so like you said, sometimes you get those nuggets where, you know, you're thinking, okay, life, rent, this and all of that. God just made a way for me, and again, I know that everybody's situation is different, but even in those moments where it seems like the walls are closing in on you, it also helps you to discover your inner strengths, things that you never thought you would have been able to overcome and conquer. Those were things that I also discovered about myself. So it's almost like, don't take life so serious where you think that this is your end. Life is just life, and we can't control everything. But I believe that once you're above ground, it's another opportunity to try again. It's another opportunity to start all over again. And for some individuals, they may come back together, and sometimes they don't. And if they don't, please don't hinder yourself from moving on and finding love again. Take your time and heal, but don't deprive yourself from being in love again.
Yes, wonderful.
Yeah,
Tamara?
that was really well said. Yeah, that was really well said. I think just a couple things I would say. Starting over is absolutely possible, and this is just a chapter. A lot of the times we think like this is the end of my story, and it's not. It's just a chapter, and you get to turn the page, and you really get to determine what comes next. Another thing is that we as human beings tend to compartmentalize very easy. I know I can do it. I have a high stress job, so I can compartmentalize, and that's dangerous too, because we are taught, sit with the easy things in life. Let's meditate. Let's feel all the things, right? But how many of us can sit with the hard things and go through that process? Because it's a process that you can't skip. You have to go through that process. So sitting with that process is important because it teaches you so much about you. I think when we stay looking at what the other person did, we miss so many things about us that we need to change, heal from, grow from. Like there's so many things, because life is a continuing school for me. So I think those are the things I would say, and most importantly, cling to God. Like cling to God, because He's going to show you so much about you, and He can turn that whole situation around, whether the person comes back or not. That's not the end of your story, but. Yeah, cling to God. That's what I would say.
Yeah, so that's a really good summary. Thank you, ladies. So in conclusion, we all recognize that divorce comes in all shapes and forms, and it is unique. It's a personal journey that if you're going through it, yes, it is your personal journey. But for other women that have gone through it already, we have similar things that we can share, and similar emotions that we may have gone through. The advice that we really want to leave with you today, though, is a couple things. One, you are not alone. Two, you can get help and support through counseling, through your friends, through the church if possible. There is help out there. Three, you can start fresh again. It's never too late to start from scratch, as in Jeanette's case. It's never too late to start from scratch, or to start from wherever your life is actually leading you to. It's never too late. And most importantly, you need to take care of yourself. You are an awesome person, an awesome individual, and we wouldn't want that you harm yourself, you injure yourself, or you feel depressed or blame yourself for whatever you're going through. Take care of yourself, love yourself, and discover this new person that you are going to be in. So I want to thank you, ladies, again for joining me on this first episode of Elephant in the Room. And as we tackle this cliche of divorce and the term that persons want to sweep under the carpet, most of the time don't want to talk about it, I hope that it was a source of strength and it was a source of encouragement for you, or if you know someone that is going through divorce, you'll be able to share and encourage them through the process. My overall wish for anyone going through a divorce process is that you remain strong, you remain resilient, and you remember that God loves you and there are other persons out there that love you too, and this is not the aim. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, goodbye.